Good morning, good afternoon, good evening guys, gals and gentlebods, and welcome back to Dave's Shed. In this episode I've got a confession and some reasons that may be excuses, or they might be excuses that could be reasons for the confession and what I have to confess. So without further ado, let's move on to it and I'll explain what's going on. Things have changed. Right, so when I left you at the end of the last video, I'd made a start on porting and polishing this cylinder head. I cleaned up the combustion chambers, which is pretty much what you can see now. And the confession is, I've done stuff all to it since. The reasons, stroke excuses, are that I decided it might be a good idea to measure the airflow capacity of this cylinder head before I do any significant port work. Now, to do that I need a flow bench, and I've never had any dealings with a flow bench whatsoever. I've seen them in pictures, in magazines, I've read about them, but I have no knowledge, no practical experience or knowledge of them. But a flow bench is a wonderful tool that enables you to measure the airflow through a port into a cylinder. So by doing that before I do any port work, then I can do the port work and then I can repeat the measurements on the flow bench and measure the improvements. That's the theory. So I need a flow bench. So I haven't got tens of thousands of pounds to throw at a flow bench, and I haven't got the space for one in the little shed here. So I invested a few tens of pounds in a book by a Mr. David Vizard. I always used to say Vizard until I watched one of his YouTube videos and realised that he pronounces his surname Vizard. So David Vizard it is. David Vizard is bordering on deity in the world of cylinder head port work and airflow measurement, flow bench work. So I'm trying to read his book, which is a very good book, but it's not the easiest read I've ever had. I also found a guy on YouTube whose channel is called Making for Motorsport. I believe his name is Dave. Very clever young chap, auto tests a Mini with a Vauxhall engine, and he did a video, well, he did a series of videos on fitting individual throttle bodies to it, and he printed the inlet manifold for it on a 3D printer in plastic. And I thought, now there's a nice idea. So the engine that's in Rory is already on ITBs on an aluminium fabricated manifold that was quite a chore to do. I've managed to gain a set of Kawasaki ZX-10R throttle bodies which have 44mm chokes. The throttle bodies he currently has are CBR 600 Honda throttle bodies with 38mm chokes. Because I'm anticipating this bigger bore engine with the headwork and the bigger cams and everything else that goes with it, flowing more air, I feel it's time to go to bigger throttle bodies. A little bit of quick history. When I first put throttle bodies on Rory, they were CBR 900 throttle bodies, which are 42mm diameter chokes. What I found was, and it may not have been down to the throttle bodies themselves, it could be down to the way it was tuned, but what I found was it gave a very much on-off throttle response. The slightest touch on the throttle and it was away, lift off the throttle and it was like you turn the ignition off. Very much an on-off situation. one of the downsides of bigger throttle bodies is that at lower engine speeds you can lose torque, you can lose throttle response because of the volume of air that is in the inlet tract. It obviously has mass and it has inertia, so when you open the throttle suddenly it doesn't all rush in, and the bigger throttle bodies don't help that. I'm not explaining this terribly well, but I'm sort of trying to give a rough layman's guide on it, if you like. The smaller throttle bodies allow higher gas velocity at lower engine speeds, which improves the throttle response and is actually better for low down torque. But I'm going bigger throttle bodies with this one. As I said, because this is the VVT head, because it's having bigger cams, because I'm doing the port work, and because I'm going to try and measure the gains that I get, hopefully then the bigger throttle bodies will give a notable improvement in performance. I'm hoping to get around 180 brake horsepower out of it, but we'll see. That's a long way down the road yet. So a 3D printed manifold, brilliant idea. Brilliant because the 3D printers are so accurate. The aluminium fabricated manifold I'm currently using is a bit of a mishmash. It was a slab of aluminium plate that I then bored and milled holes, slots into to line up with the inlet ports, and then got some aluminium tube and squashed the one end of it to create that oval shape, maintaining round at the other end so that the internal bore was round and matched up to the throttle bodies with the rubber jointing pads on it. I have to say I'm pretty pleased with the way it turned out in the end. It was an awful lot of work. It was loads of work, probably 40 to 60 hours of work went into making that manifold. And it worked, and it still works, and that engine on a stock bottom end with a lightly ported head and a pair of Piper 285 cams and the 38mm throttle bodies makes 160 brake horsepower at the flywheel, which isn't bad for the work that's been done. But I want more. As always, we all want more. So now I've got to get into 3D printing, which also means that I've got to learn 3D CAD, which is 2 mountains to climb. Learning all the detail settings of the printer to get good quality prints that stick together, and the various materials that you can actually use in 3D printers, blah blah blah. So I bought a printer. I found what I considered at the time, and what I still hope is a bargain. It was a printer that would normally retail at about 400 quid, and I got it fully refurbished for 150 delivered. And it works, and it's done pretty well so far. I've just this morning printed off these 2 blocks, and you're probably wondering what the devil they're about. Well, one of the things with a flow bench, if you put, let's say, that cylinder onto the flow bench and don't do anything about this face, you're sucking air in across a sharp edge, and that spoils the airflow and ruins your figures. So what most people operating flow benches do is use plasticine or modelling clay, and they build up a softened edge, so a radiused edge. And I thought, well, that's actually a good opportunity to have a bit of practice with 3D CAD and the printer. So I designed these 2 yesterday on 3D CAD, and this one fits that cylinder, doesn't fit that cylinder. I'm hoping that, yep, so if I do a mirror image of that one, it'll fit that one. This one fits both that one and that one. The other beauty of doing this is that I can hopefully use the basic patterns of these two, joint them up to design the flange for the actual inlet manifold when I'm ready to do that. So I'm learning 3D printing, I'm learning 3D CAD, I'm learning about flow benches, I'm gathering the bits that I need to build a flow bench. Some of them will be 3D printed. Why not? That's what I've got the machine for. Now the next thing is the injector pods, or ports I should say. So normally on an MX5 the injectors are mounted here directly into the cylinder head, and they squirt directly into the port onto the back of the inlet valves. That's great, they work well. It's okay for low down torque production. It's not so great for high end power. And what I want is a reasonable cross section of the two. For higher end power, for higher RPM power, you want the injectors to be further away from the inlets so that the atomized fuel mixes properly with the air. Because obviously at higher RPM the airflow through these ports is much higher velocity. Therefore the time the air takes and the fuel takes to get from the injector to the valve is much shorter, and so therefore the fuel has less time to mix with the air. So I don't want to use the injectors in the head. I want to use the injectors that will be in the throttle bodies, which will be out here 6 or 7 inches away, well maybe 4 to 6 inches away from the inlet valves. Which leaves me with these pockets, if you can see that. I can blank off the hole, that's not a problem. But if I leave that pocket, it's going to create turbulence in the inlet tract, which is not always a good thing. It can help because it can it can aid mixing the fuel with the air, but it spoils the airflow in general. So I want to block these ports off. So what I've done is, using some of that modelling clay, I've just squeezed a lump of it down into those ports, one into each, like so, like that, left it to harden, and then I can use those as plug mould to cast some aluminium blocks that I can then pop in there. Hopefully I can get the TIG welding torch in and weld them in place, and I can hopefully drill and tap down into the plug that way. If I flattened that end off, I can drill and tap, say 5mm down into that plug, and I can put a 5mm tap with a big 5mm bolt with a big washer on, bit of Loctite, screw it in, and pull that plug tight into that port, into that pocket, thereby blocking off those pockets, removing them altogether from the inlet tract. Now, this might not surprise you, I've got zero experience of casting either. So I'm now gathering the bits to create a small aluminium forge where I can cast, foundry I should say, not a forge, where I can cast these aluminium plugs. There will be other projects along the way that will utilise the same equipment. But yeah, that's basically where I'm at, and that's my excuses stroke reasons for not having actually done anything progress wise to this cylinder head. So it's just a short video just to catch you up to speed I'm sure both of you are fascinated about what's happening, but that's where I'm at. I've also been pretty busy because we're in racing season. I've competed in one 2-day weekend, so 2 separate events, one on each day. A couple of months ago I've marshalled at several events, 2-day weekends, so it just eats time up, but it's great fun. If you're interested in motorsport at all, I recommend having a go at marshalling. It's a fantastic bunch of people. The camaraderie is absolutely immense. They're really great people, all of them. They do it for the love of it. You do usually get paid a little bit for expenses. Doesn't always cover your costs, but you do get a little bit back. But what you do get, apart from the camaraderie of your fellow marshals, you get trackside positions where you can see other competitors and you can compare lines. At Loughton Park, where I hill climb, you can have 140 competitors and they'll do 4 runs a day. So that's 140 times 4. So if you're on post 1, Hall Corner at Loughton Park, you will see the thick end of 600 passes through that corner during the day, which is fantastic because you can watch how other people do it. You will get to see which is the right line, which is the line that works, which is the line that gives you the best exit, which is the line that allows you to carry more speed through. You will see hooligans that will chuck them in the weeds. You will see all sorts. And the beauty of hill climbing is you get all sorts of cars, from absolutely bog stock road going cars up to purpose built single seater hill climb monsters. 400 kilo cars with 600, 700 horsepower engines and 2-wheel drive. They accelerate like nothing you'll see outside of a drag strip. That's how quick they are. They're phenomenal things. Even the road cars can be pretty quick and hairy, especially in the hands of some of the drivers. So I recommend that. Get involved if you're interested. Go along to your local track, whether it be hill climb, sprint or circuit. Speak to the marshals, find one of the marshals, speak to them. They will let you know what's involved. It's a great start, it's a great step into motorsport that doesn't really cost you anything, so it's worth having a crack. Right, just to pad this little video out a few more minutes, I'll give you a couple of videos from one of my events at Loughton Park the other month. One is an in-car camera where you'll see me, my hands, what I'm doing, gear changing, steering, etc. And the other is a view from the driver's door mirror, which I find quite a fascinating view. It really gives you a different perspective on the track and just how narrow the track is. That's about it for now. Time to go and play in the editing suite and put all this stuff together for you, and I'll see you next time. Hopefully I will have some real progress to show you, not just a bunch of waffle. Thanks for watching.